But let us get into all of the news going into tonight. It was around 6 o'clock that the news dropped that Roman Reigns had tested positive for COVID-19 and was thus off of tonight's pay-per-view and his match with Brock Lesnar, in which Lesnar was going to be inserted into the now fatal five-way match for the WWE Championship. And we will skip ahead because Lesnar is now the WWE champion. So an extremely important show in terms of just setting the course for the start of the year for the company. But obviously, unfortunate news for Roman Reigns. He was not on any of the live events this week, but it seemed that that was more so of a precaution to preserve this main event. Obviously, everything was centered around Reigns and Lesnar for tonight and with the Paul Heyman story. But it just seems like they got that news today. He stated he tested today. So obviously that was what they had to deal with. And that's the current situation, the way things played out today.
Yeah, listen, you can take every precaution. And somewhere along the way, this was
This will be common. This is going to happen. Yeah. I would imagine this is not going to be an isolated case when it comes to cards that are going to be forced to be changed, some at the very last minute. I will say this. I know there was, people upset about some of the live events where some of these big names were not there and it wasn't announced until the show. They at least got this word out before now this is not a traditional pay-per-view. You're not plopping down $40 to buy the show in the traditional sense, but it seemed that the turnaround from when they found out about the test, it probably was not too many hours before they got it out, and they did get it at least before they went live tonight and got that out. They also wanted to push this main event and what the new main event was going to be.
Sure, yeah. It was not a Sasha Banks situation where they waited, until after the show started and in fact promoting the actual main event before telling you that something else was to happen. I mean, it's a totally different scenario. When it came to the Sasha Banks deal, they felt, I guess, somewhat justified because they felt Becky was a big enough surprise. You didn't really have that here. You had to announce Brock Lesnar to enter the match, and I think as a make good, maybe part of the reasoning was to give you a title change. For the audience to kind of
and probably happy. Some significant changes of how this Reigns Lesnar story is going to weave. And you have to wonder how much about this is also, December. Raw was slightly up this past week with the renewal vows with Miz and Maurice, but you're coming off a month where it was 3 of the lowest 18 to 49 numbers on record in the history of Raw. And coming out of tonight, it would suggest that you're going to at least see Lesnar probably pop up on Raw.
Perhaps, yeah, certainly. It really does make you wonder what pieces had to change at the very last minute across both shows at this point. He was
probably sizable ones, Way. There was 24 hours ago, I don't think Lesnar's coming out of the show with your WWE title. So I think some significant changes have probably occurred as a result of this, and probably the idea of sending the fans home happy with a title change, although I will imagine there were quite a few that left pretty disappointed of who was not champion after tonight.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. But yeah, this is a decision that affects a whole lot of people. I mean, first of all, we wish, Roman Reigns a speedy recovery and the best of health, of course. But beyond that, his plans for the foreseeable future will definitely have changed as has, Brock's, of course, as his Big E's and whoever he was partnered with, and maybe Bobby Lashley coming out of this as well. So
I think so.
It's a 24-hour, it's a few hours removed from a big decision that affects a whole lot of people.
Yeah, and I just wanted to read this this paragraph from the lead story from the Wrestling Observer this week that was talking about some of the changing protocols in WWE, that it appears they are following the latest CDC guidelines and changing their protocols, much like the NBA and the NFL and NHL have. But anyway, it reads from the memo that the Observer had seen that had been issued is that anyone who tests positive and is not vaccinated will have a minimum 10 days of quarantine as well as heart testing before they can return to work. Those who test positive and are fully vaccinated, as is the case with Reigns, must be out for 6 days. Beginning on day 5, if they are asymptomatic for 24 hours, they must pass 2 antigen tests at least 24 hours apart before returning. Anyone in close contact with someone who tests positive is allowed to come to work, but will be tested daily for 5 days after exposure. if they show no symptoms. So reading from that, and it had been noted that Reigns had been fully vaccinated, that in theory, it's not out of the question he could be back as early as Friday if he could pass that test in time, this being a Saturday to Friday. But we will see. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily imperative that Roman Reigns would have to fly to where SmackDown is on Friday. You could certainly get around that.
Yeah, we'll see. I again, we hope the best for him in terms of health. Of course, he's somebody who would be considered immunocompromised, I suppose, and so I don't know if things will be different for him, if they'll want to be extra cautious. But we wait to see what happens on Friday.
Rollins is setting up for the stomp, and as he leaps up, the returning Brock Lesnar runs in, catches him, F5, then hits a bunch to Owens. Lashley returns, spearing Lesnar for a big near fall, and Big E returns. He hits Lashley with the big ending, goes for the big ending on Lesnar, who counters, F5, and pins Big E in 8 minutes and 19 seconds, ending the title reign of Big E. But, dude, this is 8 minutes and 19 seconds, had my undivided attention. It was nonstop action, and I mean, it was incredible for the time it had. I was like, how are they going? I thought, wow, they are racing because they're going to get this in by 11 o'clock, and then it ended in 8:19. I was stunned it ended so early.
No complaints from me. This, we've seen this Brock Lesnar sprint formula used to great effect during his run. But I don't think I've ever seen it applied in a match with 5 people. It actually very much
all
reminds
5
me,
on special.
Everybody was on special. No, this was like Game Genie in the game. Everybody had like unlimited, finishers. And it was a lot of fun. It honestly reminds me of a lot of what people term like the indie style, the Young Buck style, the X Division style. It's just like big move after big move after big move. Except these are all like really impressive power moves, and I just had so much fun watching it. I love the fact that they had Rollins and Owens work together to try to equal one of the 2 giants here, and constantly. I mean, one of the 3 giants. It really Big E, Lashley, and Brock, all huge men. I love the fact that they made Lashley feel like an equal to Brock Lesnar very much in this match, and clearly sowing a lot of seeds for a future program between the two. I think I read on Reddit today that this was like the first in-ring meeting between the two.
Of Lesnar and Lashley, yes.
Yeah, this
crazy. Was the match Lashley has always wanted.
It's crazy to me.
Going back to when he was in Impact, this was the match he always wanted to have, and it was always, they had the opportunities, but it just never presented itself in WWE.
But these two had not even touched in a Royal Rumble, which is insane to me, considering how long both have been a part of the company. But so it definitely looks like we're about to get that match at some point soon, and I feel like it's been a long time coming, and it's coming at a time now where Bobby Lashley actually feels special and on the level of a Brock. But I have to give this company a whole lot of credit for managing in a very short amount of time you lost your main event, yet I think you still managed to build a good amount of hype to see how Brock Lesnar would interact with these 4 other people. He is the type of performer that I think is so special that you can really kind of add him into any mix, and it'll have that air of excitement and mystery, of exactly how the match will go. And to me, this completely lived up to and exceeded our expectations. Of course, the big unfortunate, thing coming out of it is the fact that it leaves Big E as the babyface champion now without the belt. And the question is what the finish of tonight would have been had Roman Reigns not had COVID. Would Big E still be champion? And is his run at the top over now? Losing it to the same guy who took it off of Kofi Kingston. I mean, I have to assume that this was not going to be the way that Big E was going to lose the championship. Of course not, right? Brock wasn't supposed to be in this match. So how is the Big E story going to end? And was this a premature conclusion to it? Or will they continue in some other way? And of course, I certainly hope so, because I don't think Big E, his championship reign has, to me, not necessarily lived up to expectations. He's had the belt, but he's hardly been the focus of these shows. So we'll see what the follow up is to him. But tonight I do kind of like give him a pass because I think they needed a big surprising outcome to get the audience home happy, and they managed to do that.
Yeah, I think this could be like a significant change for the Lesnar direction, because you do set up. I think Lashley is the obvious match. They had Lashley staring him down from the floor, like they were certainly leading you in that direction even after the match. I think it would make sense that you could do a rematch with Big E, but I don't see this title going back to Big E. And I think the logical question is, if you are making such a dramatic change that this is going to lead to title versus title at WrestleMania. Like, that can be the only outcome I see of why you would make this change, other than making people happy the night of. But there's other ways around that than putting the belt on Lesnar. Lesnar should not lose before WrestleMania.
So an issue there is, I mean, you have 2 nights, don't you?
Yes, but you don't need each title on both nights. If you had a strong main event for the first night, or you do defend one title one night. I think everyone is expecting Reigns and Lesnar at WrestleMania, but I think you'd be crazy to beat Brock Lesnar before Mania time.
So do they do sort of a Wrestle Kingdom thing, like a little mini tournament? Champions face each other.
You could go that direction if you wanted.
Yeah.
You could insert Lashley in there in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I mean, they can do whatever they want with championships, and in the end, it won't matter because somebody will have to give it up and like whatever, right? But the big matches that coming out of this that I think people want to see is Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and whatever story he's trying to tell with Brock is still hopefully in the works. That we got a big story with Paul Heyman that they tried really hard to protect, that evidently tonight was supposed to be a big chapter for, that they're gonna have to delay somehow. And then Big E, that's the other big question. What happens to Big E?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Rumble show, and then you've got Saudi Arabia as well, which, I mean, that will require, like, I could see Lesnar and Lashley being a match you would do in Saudi Arabia as well.
Yeah.
So it certainly comes out with a lot of interest, I think, for Raw, just to see the direction of many of these players, and specifically Brock, of what involvement he'll have on Raw. That I would say if we're going to see Brock more so on both shows, I think that's certainly a reaction to where Raw's numbers are, and feeling the need to increase the star power with several of Brock's appearances being over there, if you're going to get some of these matches squeezed out of him.